I'll get to sharing the slides now. So I'll share screen. I'll share the full screen. And perhaps if someone can just give me visual confirmation, you can see the PowerPoint, or someone give me audio confirmation, you can see the PowerPoint.
Yep, we can see it.
Yep, excellent, thank you. So on open pedagogy on-ramps. As I just flipped on my video to say hi, I'm Will Heikoop, the online learning coordinator. If Hedieh gets in here, please feel free, Hedieh, to pop up and pop open your hand. But Hedieh is a researcher with the Online Learning Strategies portfolio. Of course, we'll be sharing the slides as noted earlier in the introductions to this whole day. But our Online Learning Strategies website, the link is in the slides, and we also put the full URL in the slides if you want to check out the full what we do and how we work. But yeah, the outcomes for today's quick session, we do want to describe some aspects of open pedagogy practice. We want to identify some open pedagogy attributes that you might incorporate in your own practice. And we're going to also share a few open U of T resources and supports to help you out. You know, it's a short session, so we didn't want to say we're going to identify everything or describe or define everything, but we're going to start describing and identifying some pieces. So open pedagogy. You know, what is open pedagogy to start with, right? So over the week and over the time, we've been talking about open educational resources, open education practice. So what is open pedagogy? And really, we want to sum things up in this short little, you know, three-pronged approach here. That open pedagogy does include open educational practice. That practice, as you know, and for those who were here for the intro, you know, talking about the sharing, the accessibility, the equity, the open educational practice that supports those. It involves OER, open educational resource focused collaboration, you know, working together to create products, to create knowledge together, support inquiry, and participatory pedagogies, those things that, you know, involve participation, those ways that we can engage students to work together with the instructor, with other supports. So open pedagogy sort of embraces all of these things. And again, if someone sees Hedieh pop in, feel free. This is her section; she can talk to more fully. And so that's just an open thing. If someone sees Hedieh, she can take over. But that's the open pedagogy sort of summary. But we wanted to dive in a little bit and really spend some time today looking at attributes of open pedagogy. Based on the work of Hegarty, we downloaded this image, a shared image by a colleague, some of you may be familiar with, Tony Bates, who does a lot of blog work. And so we want to sum up some of these attributes of open pedagogy. There's a bunch here identified, but we're going to kind of dive into 4 specifically. But quickly, for the top level attributes of open pedagogy, as we've talked about in the first slide, it does include the participatory technologies. It involves working with people. It's about openness and trust. And it's interesting, like today, you know, we set the expectations today, and that's part of this work. You know, we talk about why we're here today and this shared sense of community. It involves innovation and creativity. It involves sharing ideas and resources. It includes this connected community. Of course, attributes of open pedagogy, it's learner generated, it's learner created, learner supported. It involves reflective practice, and it involves peer review. And if you read into this in the Hegarty paper specifically, of course, and you can even see in this diagram, a lot of these things sort of blend together. Some of these things kind of, you know, obviously they all work together, and some of them, you know, within open and trust in people, kind of goes hand in hand with learner generated and peer review, for example. So it's a little fluid, but you can also tease out these attributes sort of discreetly as well. So let's look at 4 of those specifically, and we're going to have a little activity today to kind of get into this a bit. But one of the things we wanted to talk about was the importance of you know, a participatory technology. which is, involves enabling a participatory culture, and it requires scaffolding. It's the media used to create the OER. It's how well, it's as well as it's how the content is shared, and the technologies to use to promote the participation. So things like blogs and wikis, and we use these technologies to combine into, interesting and socially constructed media. And again, it does require us to scaffold assignments, to scaffold introductions into the technology being used. Even if we might all be kind of aware of wikis generally, it still involves making sure that things are in place, that students know how to use the wiki, students know how to collaborate together, know how to participate in this participatory culture. But the technology is kind of the mediator of that, and that's a big piece of this open pedagogy. Obviously, these technologies, as we're using today, help promote this and move it forward. Another one we wish to talk about is the idea of sharing ideas and resources, which is basically, why share, and asking how and what to share. And it really does provide a wider array and a richer array of material for educators and learners to access. And really the sharing, it does create, it strengthens the learning experience. Its peers can scrutinize, they can look at resources, they can critique resources that are shared, and it can help create better quality and more valuable resources being made available. One of the things we see with our colleagues here at University of Toronto with open textbooks are having students create, edit, and improve upon year after year. So yeah, and it improves pedagogical innovation. People can see what is possible, and it encourages students. So it's an important attribute of open pedagogy. The connected community, of course. This is that culture of openness, right? It's this distributed responsibility of teaching and learning. So yeah, it's connecting these communities. The learning community becomes a place of sharing. It's encouraged not only to connect, but share the resources, share the knowledge, and create this responsibility of teaching and learning as a group. And really, this can be facilitated with things like community agreements and things like that, and it helps demonstrate value. And finally, the one we're going to look at today and talk about a little bit is being learner generated. So it's the shared knowledge artifacts. It's these things that are improvable. And again, it offers students and empowers students to solve problems, to work collectively, to discuss and improve upon what came before. And it really encourages students to become fully involved in the learning process. And again, it helps build relationships. It's an important piece to fully realize open pedagogy. So what we want to do today, though, is really, speaking of open pedagogy and getting people together and working on things, I've created a shared document, and I'm going to share the link in a moment in the chat. But what I want to do is give the instructions first. So we've created a shared document called Attributes of Open Pedagogy. I'm going to share a link in a chat in a moment, and we're going to ask everyone here today to visit the document. The 4 attributes I just briefly touched upon, we've selected these 4 attributes, and we're going to ask you to add examples and ideas of what you've experienced, either as an instructor that you've used in your practice, or perhaps as a participant in this sphere of openness, in the appropriate column. We've added, you'll see numbers 1 to 5 because there's several of us here and we're going to edit at the same time. I've added space for 5 examples in each category, but you can add more as you need. You can also feel free to add comments. This is going to be a shared Word doc. You can add comments or place check marks beside ideas you've used or would like to see or call out as effective. I've actually put a check mark in the document. You can just copy and paste and stick beside things. So let me stop my sharing for a second here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the link in the chat. Whoops. One moment. It's coming. It's coming. Sorry. There we go. So I just put the link in the chat, and I'm going to actually share my screen again, and I'll actually share the document. But if you click on that link, you should be able to access a shared document. And it looks like somebody's already in here, some of you are in here. So please, let's take just 4 minutes here, 4 or 5 minutes to populate some ideas. So I put the attributes in here. I did put a little, a one-line little piece about each piece. And for example, participatory technologies. So if you've used a wiki, if you've used a blog, maybe you can elaborate on a blog you've used or what you've seen used. When we talk about sharing ideas and things like that, or connected community, you can talk about, yeah, have you seen community agreements being used to help promote this? In learner generated, have you seen interesting assignments scaffolded in certain ways? So take a moment if you can and share, or if you haven't experienced, take a moment to read others, and you can put a check mark to upvote. But let's take a minute to see some of the things and some of the ways we've seen this in practice, or we can envision this in practice. And of course, the sort of meta arrangement here is that we are, in doing this, we're actually using a participatory technology. We're sharing ideas, we're sharing resources, we're working with a connected community. We're all here today in a common space with a common interest. And we're going to generate this as learners. So we'll give 3 or 4 minutes, and let's see what we can get up. Oh, and interesting stuff already. So I'm seeing some fascinating things here, especially with participatory technologies. Sorry, I'll give 1 more minute for this. It's funny because I'm seeing somebody right now just wrote under participatory technologies what we're doing right now. Whoever wrote that, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. That's exactly. We can all send a check mark beside that one. But yeah, I'm seeing some amazing things here. I'll read over some of these while we're typing and while we finish this off. But yeah, some participatory technologies, Google Docs to share ideas, Wikipedia editathons, a great way to bring people together. What we're doing right now, we're using a OneDrive doc with Office 365. It's a great participatory technology. Social annotation tools. That's a good one to mark up readings, have annotations available. Fascinating one. Use of course website. Yep, Instagram. That's a very new one. I had Instagram in my thing too. Instagram, Pinterest type page to aggregate and find images. Looking at sharing ideas and resources, we have assignments by discipline. A sharing assignment templates is a fascinating idea. Sharing experiences as well as resources. Connected communities, Teams channels are great. We're using Zoom, for example. Slack workspaces, interesting ideas. And popping down quickly to learner generated, I just want to repeat some of these out here too. Having student teams of writers building OER, that's, again, it's a brilliant way to incorporate. And yeah, having participants choose their topic of learning. I'm not going to read all of these. This is a link that's going to be available. People will be able to see. But this is great. But so I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna stop this share, and just quickly. Oh, actually, I probably just should have left my thing going. But I just want to take a moment here to put a pause on this. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for participating in this piece. But let's just take a minute here for a quick share back. And I recognize we're 5 minutes out, so we're running short of time, but it was great to see all your contributions. But really quick, and maybe what I'll do is edit this on the fly a bit. Instead of maybe using your mic at the moment, maybe we can type in chat to answer one of these or both in the chat. But what is one of these attributes? So we, take a look through these. Think about one attribute you'd like to incorporate. So your colleagues, your peers in this session right now, just put what, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 amazing little tips, strategies that go to open OER attributes, things to on-ramp and get you going. Have a look and share one attribute you'd like to incorporate into your practice in the chat. Or what is one attribute you've used successfully in your practice? So maybe a colleague called out something or a peer called out something that you've used. Share with your friends, share with your colleagues in the chat based on this document, something you'd like to try, something you've used successfully, and who knows, after this and during this session, you may be chatting with friends and colleagues after this, and we may be able to, borrow from this doc we just created together and chat with each other in this community to see how we can incorporate these. But these are great ideas. I'm gonna put that down. So I don't know if Hedieh is back in the session, if Hedieh wants to take over for the next slide.
Hi, Will. Yes, I am here. So Will and I thought that we could share one example of open pedagogy, one example of what pedagogical practices on the open pedagogy spectrum with you that has been happening at U of T for over a decade now. I'll be sharing a course from OISE. The title of the course has changed in the past 10 or 12 years, but the material is similar. It's about technology, curriculum, and instruction, and how collaborative technologies can be used in teaching and learning contexts. So we will just review the 4 attributes of open pedagogy and how they manifest in this course. So the first attribute was participatory technology. This course lived in a wiki space, and all content was accessible and editable by students who were previously had taken this course, or the students who just signed up for the course. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the next attribute was sharing ideas and resources, and there need to be some venue for students to contribute to shared knowledge. In this course, there was at least 2 venues. The first one was creating a collective resource annotation piece. So students would receive a template. They had to find educational technology or educational technology communities that they thought would be useful in their practice. And mind you, these were teacher education students. They had to annotate it, that why do they think it's important to their work. And the other piece, could you please go to the next slide, Will? Thank you, was a collaborative lesson design assignment. So again, this assignment had a template. It was done in small groups. Students had to come up with, had to compose a lesson design for a specific grade. So it had to be as specific as possible. And these would be shared with the whole class as wiki pages. So what the students would create would become the building blocks of the shared knowledge and idea space for this course, and they would persist. Well, could you please go to the next slide? We also talked about connected community. In this course, the responsibility of teaching and learning was really distributed between the instructor and students. So as I mentioned in the collective resource annotation activities, students would annotate resources, but then their peers would go in and provided their points of view in terms of the quality of an annotation or the relevance of the resource. And all of these were scaffolded, so students would learn how to provide peer feedback in a way. And if we go, right here. So again, in the beginning of each iteration, the instructor would ask the students to go back to previous years, look at the content and see if the themes still resonate with them. If it did not, it was open for negotiation. What do we want to learn in this course? Next slide, please. Thank you. The last attribute is the learner-generated content. As I've tried to circle that part on the left of the wiki page, all content from previous years was open for students. They could go and see it. And if they see something that was interesting to them, they had the option of using it as a base and improving it and mention their ideas of how the content had been improved. But we have two practical considerations or cautions. This course has been running since 2006, I believe. For a very long while, it was hosted on a wiki. But in the past couple of years, that wiki has become dysfunctional and it's not working anymore. So they had to move the course to another platform. The thing is that after a while, technology may become obsolete. So instructors may want to keep it in mind that if they are running the course for a very long while, they may have to move their content somewhere else. And the other thing, which might be a little bit discipline oriented, is the relevance of topics. A topic that was once cutting edge may not be cutting edge after 5 years. And in this course, there was this aspect of some of the students volunteering to go in and do some housekeeping every year to keep the content relevant. So I'll hand it back to Will, and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, and thank you. And I realize we're a minute or two over, with apologies, but just quickly, we did want to say, as I mentioned, to navigate resources available to you. Our OpenU Toronto site is OCW, stands for Open Courseware, but OpenU Toronto will get you there too. ocw.utoronto.ca is our open resources and projects at the University of Toronto. So have a look there. You can see projects that we've done, projects that are currently underway, open textbooks, all sorts of great things. And then, of course, eCampus Ontario, and we're going to be talking about that a little later more today with H5P, but the Open Library is openlibrary.campusontario.ca. So thank you so much for your time today. I'll stop sharing. Apologies for going a couple minutes over, everyone, but yeah, thank you.
Will and Hedieh, thank you so much for that presentation. And all of us were saying this is such an interesting course and how it's being taught and learner participatory and generated content. And Sherry had a question actually, and this is a good question. Are there any resources where students can help with building the course from the start, or do you have any suggestions on that?
That's an interesting one. I'm not sure if Hedieh has experience or knowledge from what Jim did with his course, as she noted. Do you happen to, Hedieh? Do you know anything specific? I know through OpenU Toronto, we don't have anything yet, but that's an interesting thing, Sherry Ann, to consider for sure. I don't know if Hedieh has any news for what Jim did with that.
And then Lori has her hand up after that.
I was actually going to weigh in on that a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing that I've seen is you could almost describe it as community-based learning, where you could set a schedule where you have certain topics. So you know what the structure is, but you at least have open topics and let the group decide what topics they want to decide or upvote on the topic from a range of topics that are proposed, so that there's a little more learner agency in deciding what the within the structure, what the deeper dives will be.
Yeah, and we've got other great ideas. I think just specifically, unfortunately, I don't have any resources at hand like on our site yet, but it's definitely something we should consider and to collect. Yeah, because we've seen some great things. Lots of our colleagues are doing very interesting things with both a flexible or liquid syllabus with learner generated content. So yeah, thank you.
Will, can Sherry connect with Sherry Ann, sorry, connect with you and Hedieh afterwards just to learn more and think about the different tools that might be useful for her research?
Absolutely. And you know what I'll do? I'll edit our slides to put the email in there, but I just dropped my email in this chat, but I'll actually add that to our slide deck as well.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? Lots of comments about how interesting and useful this can be. I see another comment. Liquid syllabus caught my attention.
Maybe I could find a link for that too. Some interesting, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So just give me a moment.